Hare Krishna. So welcome again to our, I'm afraid this will have to be our final katha. We're going to have to cancel the other ones because we got Bhakti Chiru Swami speaking and I don't really want to look like the competition. So, forgive me. So this is Mundakini, Prabhu. Mundakini Mataji is a very old devotee from France and spent many years in England and in other places around the world. Is a very prolific preacher. I was one of the first foreigners to go to Russia in an attempt to try to spread Krishna consciousness there, although her visa didn't allow too much time, but she certainly left an indelible effect. Anyway, here you have Mundakini Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutile Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamli Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachamine Nirvise Sashundavadi Pashatyade Satarine Vanshakapata Vyasha Kripa Sindhu Vyagacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Parvati, Prabhu. Should I go again a little over what I spoke the other time or not?
Yes. You feel as comfortable, you can start from the beginning or start from where you were speaking there also?
Okay, I try to make it a little more synthetic.
Yeah.
So, my dear Prabhus, I would like to have thousands of mouths and to be a Kavi to glorify Srila Prabhupada, but I need really your benediction to speak about his glories. Okay, so everything started for me in the year 69 in Paris. We were actually 3 young French girls, and at this point of our life, we became eager to find more about spiritual life, because we were completely discouraged with the way our parents used to live. And we thought, if we just have to live to sleep, to go to work, and to take the tube, and it's a special saying in French, I don't know if some of you speak French, but it says métro, boulot, dodo, meaning just to take the tube, to go to work and to sleep. We thought we better commit suicide. We didn't want that. So we came to that point of studying various scriptures, unfortunately mostly impersonalism, and we wanted to find a spiritual master. At one point we decided to go to India to find a spiritual master, and by doing so we took a little job. It was distributing leaflets in a mailing box, publicity. And we met one boy who was really strange. He had a little, how do you call it in English? Yeah, a little chica, but we didn't know the name at this time. And he was seeing us, always reading these Mayavadi books, and he asked us if we were interested in spiritual life. We told him yes, so much so. And he told us he had a spiritual master called Swami Bhaktivedanta, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And if we wanted to see him, we could go to London. His spiritual master was going to install some deities, and it was a very mystical experience. We should go. So we started meeting the devotees, and the Maha Mantra made a very strong impression on us, and we decided to go to London. So the first day we came to London. Now we celebrated in our Vaishnav calendar. It's called Odan Shastri. It's actually the day Shri Shri Radhanandanishvara were installed. And we first came, but we were not allowed straight in the temple because we were not properly dressed, or, you know, and the lady devotees thought we were really Maya Devis. We were young girls, so they put a sari on us, and they tied our hair properly. And when we reached the temple, the installation by Srila Prabhupada had been done. So we heard from Yamuna and Shyama Sundar how it was actually a beautiful ceremony, but at one point the canopy on top of the deities was about to collapse, and Srila Prabhupada was kind of holding the canopy like a lion. He was really protecting the deities, and everything went into place, and they were properly installed. So when we were properly dressed, and we came up in the temple. The temple was so beautiful, done by our dear Shyama Sundar. Some of you have seen the temple, Vishaka probably, you have seen it. Very blessed temple. Yeah. It was very mystical. Shyama Sundar wanted it to look like a Buddhist cave, and it was all curved, and a lot of incense. It was quite long. The deities were in front, and Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana was on our right side, so on the left of the deities. So we just came up, and we were really impressed by the atmosphere. The devotees were chanting, having kirtan, and all of a sudden we found out that the devotees were actually bowing down. So we did like them, not wanting to be noticed. We wanted to be very polite, to do like everybody else. But as I mentioned last time, I was a young girl, quite curious, and I just looked up, you know, and I saw two beautiful golden feet passing by my head. And I looked up again, and it was Srila Prabhupada. And the first very strong impression I got from Srila Prabhupada was that he was so dignified, and he was like the ruler of the world, like an emperor, you know, very straight and very dignified. And at the same time, he was so humble. And I remember telling myself, I never saw these two qualities present in one person, like to be the king of the world and to be very humble at the same time. Then he sat down and he continued the kirtan, the melody we all know, with the tempo building up, and it was really fulfilling to the soul and the heart. And I remember we were not so many of us, maybe 25, not 30, I believe, in the room. And Srila Prabhupada looked at us. Actually, I came with one other girl, a friend from high school. Her name is Jyotirmayi. And another girl came later. She was Ilavati. And I saw Srila Prabhupada glance on me, and tears started flowing, and I couldn't understand why, because it was not joy, it was not sorrow, but it was something I couldn't control. And I remember again telling myself, this person knows me much better than I do. And I felt a sense of eternity between us. and many devotees would tell you the same thing from their first meeting of Srila Prabhupada. And most astonishingly, he answered all our questions in this lecture and the next one. During 1 week he stayed in London from that point on. We didn't have to even ask the question, but Srila Prabhupada in the lecture was already answering it, and it made a lot of sense. We were still very careful about the philosophy because we were very polluted. And in France we had a strange experience when we went to see the devotee, because one devotee told us at the first lecture that God was just a small blue boy, a village boy, and he was stealing butter and giving it to the monkeys. So we thought, oh, this philosophy is not for us. Devotees are really nice, but the Mahamantra is great, but that's not where we want to go. But Prabhupada was really washing carefully all our Mayavadi influence. So during this 1 week, I can remember how caring he was to the young girls we were. One time, it was in his room. He called us a few times in his room, and I remember he asked me, "What is your name?" And since I was not initiated, so I told him, "Srila Prabhupada, I don't have any name." And then he looked at me really surprised, and he says, "Oh," and then he understood. And then he had a big smile and he says, "Oh, you don't like the name your parents have been given you?" And his big smile meant, "Don't worry, I will give you a wonderful name." And in connection with this name, that happened also to a lot of devotees. Prabhupada said he knew what Krishna wanted him to know. So he gave me a name that really fulfilled me. Like when I first came to the temple, we had the great fortune to meet our dear eternal friend Yamuna Devi, and she was there taking care of the deities, and she was there with her husband, and Tamal Krishna, who was Brahmachari at that time, was there, Dhananjaya, Shyamasundar, Malati, Mukunda and Shanaki. It was a wonderful team, very creative. They would use their intelligence to optimize their service, and that's the way they trained us. So we hope every one of us here and all the people who take up Krishna consciousness will have this opportunity to use their intelligence, their talents, and to be completely satisfied in their service in Krishna consciousness. That was the way Prabhupada trained us. So Yamuna was there, and she took care of us. And often she had us go and meet Srila Prabhupada, because during this first week we were so foolish. We thought we were going to test Srila Prabhupada to see if he's a real spiritual master. And we were expecting so many extraordinary things from a spiritual master. Special words, special... one time Srila Prabhupada called us again in the room. And I remember being a little shy, but I became convinced I wanted initiation. And Prabhupada said in the lecture that spiritual life, initiation is the beginning of spiritual life. So I asked him, "Sure, Prabhupada, I would like to start spiritual life." And then he smiled and he said, "Oh, you're already doing spiritual life, you're sweeping the floor, you're washing the dishes." And that was a bit bewildering to us. We didn't understand what was so special about it, you know. And so it took a little time to show you the kindness of Srila Prabhupada to the lady devotees, especially young one, when he saw us coming, dressed in, I remember, in blue and pink, flashy nylon saris, he said, "Oh, they're actually blowing flowers in the wind." And he said, we should initiate these two young girls. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, "Oh, Prabhupada, they're not ready, they're so impersonalist." And Prabhupada says, "Okay, we'll wait a little bit." And so many nice events during that week. He became very expert in really touching our heart and connecting us with Krishna consciousness and Lord Chaitanya's movement. And when we were taking prasadam at noon, I read something, but correct me, maybe the words are not exactly these ones, but something saying that the greatest service to humanity is to save people from the impersonalist calamity. So he really did that to us, by his mercy. Something I remember during this time is this man coming during the lecture, and he became very aggressive, and he started saying to Prabhupada, "God has no personal form. God, why do you say he has a form? God is light, is Brahman." And then Prabhupada became so angry, he became all red, like a lion, and he started calling him a rascal and a fool, and we became bewildered and confused, although we were already very attached to the Holy Name and to Srila Prabhupada. Then with my friend, who was called at that time Joel, we say, okay, he's such a nice person, but it said in the scriptures we read that the spiritual master should be equipoised and never become angry. So we should leave, you know. It's a shame, but we were ready to pack and to go. But, as Prabhupada said, he knew everything Krishna wanted him to know. And before we could leave, he called for us in his room again. And he started asking us what kind of service we could do. Could we type? Could we help him? And he was so charming, like a wonderful spiritual father or grandfather, that we decided, no, we won't go. We'll give it another chance. and that was Srila Prabhupada. And by the time he actually left, we became convinced he was our real spiritual master. And then we started we wanted to stay, to try the process, and not to be bewildered by the philosophy, to try to chant more purely, and after we will read the books. So now, from that time on, I remember a few things of Srila Prabhupada being in England, and I don't know if Ananda was there at the time, but I know Krishna was there as well, so maybe Krishna could come and we could share the speaking, because Srila Prabhupada came to their house.
I met Prabhupada in 71, 2 years after his.
Yeah, but still, Prabhupada went a few times to their houses in England, so if you allow us, maybe you could come and say a few words to... No? But then, okay, or maybe just have a mic.
Okay, yeah. We already got her.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, so at this time, Yamuna Devi and Gurudas were heading the community in the temple, and we have to say that it was a very wonderful family spirit. Everybody was feeling really protected. Whereas I forgot to tell you to come back to the name given letter I received by Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada wrote, my dear daughter, he was calling us his dear daughters, and he said, I'm very happy you are taking up this Krishna consciousness seriously. Please learn from the elder devotees here. And then he says, your name is Mundakini. And he says, Mundakini is the name of a river. It's flowing actually from the heavenly planets. And then when it comes to the earthly planet, it's called the Ganges River. And actually, when Lord Vamanadev begged 3 steps from Bali Maharaj, he became very big and he assumed the gigantic form of Trivikram. And then, with this toe, he made a little hole, and the Mundakini River became the Ganges River. So, the funny thing for me was that I was really attached to my dear friend Yamuna, and I was thinking it would be so nice to have the name of a holy river. And I was also attached to one wonderful God brother who was like a protecting brother to us. And he said his name was Trivikram. So it was so funny that Prabhupada gave this name in connection with these 2 devotees. I really appreciated. Then time came to serve in separation. I remember at the airport, it was always the same scene all over the world when Srila Prabhupada was leaving. Devotees were feeling so much separation, and it was almost impossible to think that we could go on with our service without Srila Prabhupada's personal presence. And then he left. So I got the great fortune to be trained up by Yamuna in deity worship. And we used to send Srila Prabhupada little gifts, little parcels, and he would always answer. You know, he would thank each one of us for our gifts, whatever it was. You know, it could be birthday, it could be little scarf, it could be something for his deities. And I remember he was accepting every gift. He was actually accepting the love in the gift. And I didn't know how to do many things with my hands, but I remember one time I did a little scarf for Srila Prabhupada, and it was saffron, it was quite narrow, and next morning he came in the temple room and he put it over his head, and it was a little ridiculous because it was too narrow, you know, but I could understand he was really accepting our love and encouraging us in reciprocation. So, at this time, there is a little rasa exchange with Srila Prabhupada with the cooking. I heard some devotees said, in our time, we had a lot of Srila Prabhupada said, and some things were correct and something a little less, but that one must have been correct. Vishaka from Wenanada, you will tell me. So Srila Prabhupada said, I heard, I would go back to the spiritual world just to eat logdu and kachoris, correct? Yeah. So I thought, oh, I have to learn this, you know. And we had a lot of wonderful Indian ladies, like our dear Prabhu here, who were knowing how to cook very nicely. So I went to the house and I tried to learn these 2 things. And it became a rasa with the kachoris. So one time, Srila Prabhupada was a little sick and he stayed in England for quite a long time, maybe a month. I can't remember exactly the year.
You used to stay 4 to 6 weeks approximately.
Sorry?
You used to stay 4 to 6 weeks approximately every time you used to come.
Yeah.
I used to like London.
Yeah.
Parks over there.
Repeat that. Repeat that so we can hear that.
Sorry.
Repeat.
Oh, Krishna Prabhu said he used to like London very much, and he stayed for approximately 6 weeks. But sometimes it was a little shorter. But one time he stayed a long time, and it was in. He stayed at the manor. We already had the manor. Yeah. And somehow or other, the nice devotee who was supposed to cook for Srila Prabhupada, Himavati, couldn't do it this time. And I got the duty. And I was so excited. And I had learned a few things. So I think it was Shruti Kirti at this time at the manor. And he told me how to cook in this beautiful 3 layers brass cooker. And I was doing, so we were doing it at the bottom, correct me if I'm wrong, the dal was at the bottom, then the vegetable and then the rice, and we used to take the top to make the chants for the vegetables. But at the same time, I wanted to do what I had learned from the wonderful Indian ladies. So I was always putting something special on it. And one time I made the peas kachoris. And I brought it directly to Srila Prabhupada. He was sitting at the manor. His room is so beautiful at the manor, very, very peaceful. And he was taking his prasadam on a desk. And when he saw the kachori on the plate, his eyes became very big. And he says, Mundakini, did you make kachoris? And I said, I tried, Srila Prabhupada. And then he was always sitting alone. And I was quite amazed because every time I didn't get any feedback, Srila Prabhupada liked that or he didn't like that. So the whole month I was wondering, does he like it? But I didn't get any wrong feedback, so I carried on. And when time came for Srila Prabhupada to leave, to take the plane, it was very hard for all of us because he had become such an important person in our life for all the devotees. And maybe you were there, Vishaka, at this time in England. He was taking morning walk. And so our whole day was centered around Srila Prabhupada. And as Yamuna, when we were in the presence of Yamuna, she carried Prabhupada's presence with her, so strongly, so naturally. When we were in Srila Prabhupada's presence, it was like he was opening a little window for all of us on the spiritual world. So we were sitting down listening to his class, and the philosophy was quite simple. It was maybe not so elaborate as it is now in some wonderful classes. But when he was just talking about topics on Bhagavad Gita, telling us we were not this body, speaking to us about the basic themes of Bhagavad Gita, it became so real. We were all convinced we were not this body. And at least in his presence, we didn't feel like acting as we were this body. So they were at the morning walks. I remember Vishaka was taking pictures. And myself, I was always trying to find a little place behind Srila Prabhupada to follow his steps. And it was so astonishing. He was like over 70 by the time, but he was so vigorous, and we had a hard time to following up. So he was going to go. And at this time, I thought it's going to be impossible to carry on serving or even living if he's going to go. And at this time, just it was maybe 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at the manor, Shruti Kirti came with a big list of things, of preparation. And he told me, Srila Prabhupada wants you to cook all this for the plane. And it was actually an answer to my question. It was about 20 things I'd been cooking a little special during the month. And again, Srila Prabhupada was finding a way to reciprocate. You know, he was showing that actually I accept your service. Maybe it was not good at all, but he was always reciprocating in this way. So he asked, I remember, for plum chutney, and we couldn't. Everything was closed, but we went and we knocked on the grocery shop door, and the man came out. He was not working anymore, but we explained the situation, and he sold some plums, and we could make it for Srila Prabhupada. And the feeling of separation became so intense that I remember the time the brass cooker, it was brass, so I began to make it shine like crazy. And in a selfish way, I thought maybe when Srila Prabhupada will be in the plane, he will wonder, oh, it's shining much better than the other days. Who did that? You know, I was in a selfish way. I was thinking. Then he will remember maybe his fallen disciple. Maybe he will think, oh, it's Mundakini, and then the separation will not be quite there, you know. So going back to London, one thing very, very beautiful happened. Again, showing that Srila Prabhupada knew everything Krishna wanted him to know. One time, I was just cooking and doing manual service for him, and there was a little time left. And I thought, maybe I can go and distribute a few magazines in the street. You know, in London, it was always so easy to distribute books and magazines. So I thought, I'll use this time. I went down, and Prabhupada's room was on the first floor. It was really beautiful. It was wood on the floor, painted blue. And I think, if I remember correctly, a little saffron, the wall. You remember? No? Somebody remember? We heard Srila Prabhupada like these two colors, blue and light saffron, because in his childhood, his rooms were like that. So he was looking at the window, and he looked at me going, you know. And he was appreciating with a smile. And then I went and I distributed a few magazines, and there was a very nice boy in the street. And I sold him a BTG, and I asked him to come and see Srila Prabhupada, that our spiritual master was in London, and he was interested in spiritual life. And I came back to the temple, and Srila Prabhupada was, before I entered the door of the Bury Place temple, Srila Prabhupada was again at the window, and he looked at me and he said, "Thank you very much, thank you very much, thank you very much." And I was wondering, why is he saying thank you very much? What did I do special, you know? And then the boy came a few days later, and he was a very nice boy, and actually after he became Krishna, I'm getting old. Krishna, I just have a blank in my mind, but he became a wonderful devotee, Swami, and if it comes back, I will tell you. No, the other one. Prabhavishnu Swami, yeah, Prabhavishnu, it was Prabhavishnu Swami. And Prabhupada knew that, we were just like instruments, and what he wanted to do, what Krishna wanted to do, we were just tools for Srila Prabhupada to make the connections with the people who were ready to take up Krishna consciousness. Again, one little memory. I think no, it came after. So going back to the to the Russian saga, doing deity worship at this time. Yamuna and all the first heroes of the British Yatra had gone already to India for the first World Sankirtan tour. So we were left in the temple, by feeling a bit orphans. And one time I was doing puchari work with the wonderful Shri Radhananda Nishwara, and I can repeat that, that about these wonderful deities. Srila Prabhupada said, actually Krishna is strict to you. He didn't come as a statue, as a murti, he came himself. And we remember how he almost kidnapped Shri Radhananda Nishwara. So at this time, I remember praying to Shri Radhananda Nishwara in this way. My dear Lord, I've read in some scriptures that if the spiritual master is asking you to do some task, maybe a little difficult, and if you say yes straight away, then you will progress in spiritual life. So I asked them a little selfishly again, oh, I would like so much Srila Prabhupada to ask me something a little difficult. But please, my Lord, help me to remember to say yes at this time. So at this time we heard that Srila Prabhupada had gone to Moscow. He had been invited by Professor Katha, but as some devotees told us, we did some paragraph with the Russian devotees, and it's heading to the glory of Srila Prabhupada. Actually, he was not properly invited. It was not a formal invitation. Just he had been, some contact had been made, and Professor Katha said, yes, you could come, it would be very nice. But one day, Professor Katha was really panicking, because he received a call that from Shamasuda, yes, you have said that it would be nice, we could come. So I'm telling you, actually, my spiritual master is here in Moscow, and we are just here, so we are just waiting for you to invite us to have this talk. But it was not a formal invitation. And what happened is that the Professor Katha was kind of nervous, so he chose a day to invite Srila Prabhupada when all the students and all the professors were out, where it was nobody at the university. But anyway, there was a very nice talk where Prabhupada spoke about so many things, and especially about Vadashram Dharma. And that he told him, we all read, that actually Krishna consciousness was really spiritual communism, that we couldn't have a society without any class. Even in Russia, some people were teachers, some people were workers, and that cannot be avoided. That is natural, like the caste system, not in the modern way. Of course, that was very degraded, but the Varnashram system, had to exist in any kind of society. If not, it would be chaos and people would be unhappy. So we know how Prabhupada was frustrated then, because he was not allowed to speak to the young people. And his goal was to speak to the young generation. They were the ones who were ready to take up Krishna consciousness and to change their way of life. And we know that by Shyamasundar prayers, seeing so much Prabhupada unhappy, and by Prabhupada's strong desire, we know how he met this boy Anatoly, and how he spent 3 days just preaching non-stop and giving so much energy and spiritual potency to that young boy. So we just heard, because it was kept quite secret at that time, we just heard in London that Prabhupada had been in Russia talking to a professor. And that's all we heard. And I remember thinking, oh, he's so brave, so courageous to go and preach in this country that is the kingdom of atheism. And it's very dangerous. And I thought very quickly, it's a place I will probably never go there. And then the Srila Prabhupada came to London to see the Radhanandanishvara. And one time, one boy called me upstairs. Prabhupada wants to see you. And this time I got worried. What did I do wrong again, you know? And so I went. And Prabhupada was sitting, he was smiling very nicely. And he just says, come in, Mundakini. And Shyama was there. And he said, and always I repeat it because it was so much the feeling at this point. He was saying in a voice like asking me to get potatoes across the street, you know. He says, Mundakini, would you like to go to Russia, to marry this boy Anatoly, and to help spreading Krishna consciousness there? And he had a big smile. And Radhanandanishvara was so nice, they helped me to remember, you know. I didn't think it. I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. And then his smile became even bigger and bigger. And he said, oh yes, okay, Shyama, you arrange everything. And that's how it started. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the going to Russia? Although Prabhupada was always there, but he was not physically with us. Should I still say a few?
Yeah, we'd like to know.
Okay. So, first time I went with a tourist visa, and at this time we knew that the Russian government knew that we planned to do something in Russia, because they were coming to the temple. And when I went to the Buddhist temple to get my visa, they came as well, and they asked funny questions. But I got the visa, I just had saris, so I got some outfit, a civil outfit to go. And then I got ready to go on a tourist visa. Prabhupada also went on a tourist visa, actually. He had not any visa to go other than tourist. The first time and the only time he went, unfortunately. And I was supposed to be in this tourist group, going every night to see the Bolshoi theater dancers. And I did, actually, you know. And so that time, I wanted to be very discreet, not noticed, because we knew that the tourist guide was reporting every night to the KGB what the people of the group were doing, if anybody was speaking to them, and so on and so on. And the lady, she asked us what we want to eat for that evening, so I became very much noticed, because I wouldn't take meat, I wouldn't take fish, I wouldn't take egg, and I had to tell her I was a vegetarian. And when I came up to go to the room, there was this young man who asked if I was, my civil name is Monique. So he said, are you Monique? And I thought he's a KGB man. I didn't start everything, but already it's finished, you know. And I said, yes, I am. And he says, my name is Anatoly. So that was the first meeting with Anatoly, who was going to become Ananta Shanti. And he was really starting his Krishna consciousness. So I remember asking him, you know, if he was following the regulative principles, and he was so new. He says, I try, most of them, I try, you know. And then we started going to some some friends of him. Then we started to receive friends at home, and he was preaching to very educated young men and to some artists. There was one boy called Valmiki who later on left his body. Unfortunately, he became a devotee. He was a musician. So they had so many wonderful questions. And I recall that really our Prabhupada and Krishna were really helping with this preaching, because I'd been doing so much pujari work and not remembering all the shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, you know, not like our wonderful Vishaka. She has such a concise mind, and you could ask any question, I think she could answer very nicely. But at this time, it was like coming from inside, like some very difficult questions. The proper verse was coming, the memory came, and I could see Srila Prabhupada was really doing it, you know. And something I can share with you was the first Srimad Bhagavatam books coming, because it was really Srila Prabhupada and Krishna's doing. Shyamasundar got the two first volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam coming hot from the press, and he said you have to take them to Russia, to Moscow. And the first canto.
Do you remember the time when you went? Like Prabhupada came in June 22nd, and your first visit when?
I think that was in 71. It was a few months after, I think. And so the two first volumes, they had the blue cover with Mahavishnu and the creation of the universe. I took them in my suitcase, and in the train, there was one lady, an old lady, and she started talking, and she said, "Oh, where are you going?" Blah blah blah, and she said, "You know, you should be careful. You shouldn't have any religious books, no Bible, nothing, because they become mad if you have any religious books." And I said, "Oh, don't worry, I don't, you know." And she said, "You cannot hide them. They will look everywhere." So at this time, I was kind of wondering and praying to Krishna again, saying, "My dear Lord, I really don't know what to do. You want these books to be brought to Ananta Shanti, so please help me, do something. I'm useless. I don't know what I can do." And then there was this very nice Indian couple, and I thought maybe if they have the book, it will look less noticeable. And I started talking to them. And he said, "Oh, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Moscow, actually." And he said, "Oh, what are you going? Who do you know in Moscow?" So I told him, "I have many friends, and there is one friend, it was a friend of Ananta Shanti, an Indian boy called Madhukar." And I told him, actually his father works in the embassy. And he says, "Really? What is the name of his father?" And I can't remember now, but I told him the name. And he said, "Oh, he's my boss." I said, "Oh, well." I said, "You work in the embassy?" And in my heart, I felt so much joy. And I said, "Thank you, Krishna, you're so clever. You did it, you're so clever." And I told him, "Oh, you know, I heard the militians are really funny about some religious book. And I have this wonderful book, the Bhagavad Purana. It's actually for the son of your boss. Would you kindly take it in your diplomatic suitcase?" And of course, the militian wouldn't open the diplomatic suitcase. I said, "Oh, no problem, of course, you know, I will give him." And then he took the books, the Srimad Bhagavatam, he put the books in the diplomatic suitcase, closed it, you know. And I felt so, you know, I could see Srila Prabhupada's working and Krishna's working when he wanted to get something done. And I felt so privileged and honored to be a useless instrument, because I was not doing anything, but they were doing the job, you know. They had to do it. And the militian came and they looked everywhere. They were really kind of nasty at this time. And I kept a straight face, but inside I was rejoicing and remembering how Krishna treated them, and remembering that beautiful verse saying something like, after Krishna's departure, the Srimad Bhagavatam has risen to dissipate the darkness of Kali Yuga. And you know, like it was really the incarnation of Krishna. And the books, they have their own ways. We can see when we distribute books, maybe to an old lady, she's taking it, she will not open it. And sometimes we'll see somebody coming to the temple and telling us, oh, I became convinced because I found this book in my grandma's library, and so many times. So these two volumes, they had a life of their own, and they made their glorious entrance in Russia through the diplomatic suitcase of that nice Indian gentleman. You know. So let me try to think of. Before I go to another country, would someone tell something? You have been in England, my dear, and please, would you come and share some memories in England? Anata.
Narayani is not from England.
Please.
Narayani is supposed to speak after you, but you continue.
No, you
Oh,
go ahead.
No.
You continue speaking, and then I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so very shortly, maybe in France, just a few things. In Paris, maybe. Anada already talked about it so nicely the other day. In Paris, the time I was going to go to Russia, I went to Paris Temple. And something maybe the devotees who were not there at the time should know. When Prabhupada was coming to a temple, it was always the smell of fresh paint, because all night the devotees were painting the walls, and sometimes it was still wet when he came. So Srila Prabhupada came first to a small temple we had in Fontenay-aux-Roses. You described it so nicely. And at this time, was it at this time or at a later time, he did so many wonderful, he gave so many wonderful talks. What was wonderful with Srila Prabhupada was when he came to a country, he would immediately pick up or knew the culture of the country. So when he came to France, I remember he gave a talk in Salle Pleyel, and he knew that people, not so many people now, but a few were quite religious Christians. So he began by quoting the Bible, saying that in the beginning was the word, you know. And then he went on with the Mahamantra, explaining about the Mahamantra. And another funny thing, we went to a garden called Jardin du Luxembourg in Paris. It's a beautiful garden that was made with a palace that was made by the mother of Louis XIV. And Srila Prabhupada had a fire sacrifice initiation in this garden. But since we didn't ask any permission, the fireman came and kind of, you know, extinguished the fire and told us to stop. And again, he was quoting from the French culture, saying how Napoleon was a great man. because he was getting up very early in the morning and getting things done at 4 so early in the morning. So in Paris, we already talked about Srila Prabhupada in the Paris temple, the beautiful temple in a very selected area, Avenue Foch. And when actually he installed the deities, he said that Srimati Radharani was looking like a French girl. And he said that at this time that French girls are very beautiful. And that Srimati Radharani will attract many very beautiful French girls. And in turn, they will attract the Mayavadi philosophers. So in this temple, there is a beautiful picture of Srila Prabhupada offering artik after the installation ceremony. Maybe you have seen that pictures. And while looking at the picture, Srila Prabhupada said, actually, I'm looking at Krishna, and Krishna is looking at me. And he is looking with such a devotion at the deities. So many other little things, but now I think Narayani probably is going to speak.
Well, Linda, can you put the chair there?
Oh, I can sit here.
Just sit.
Should I be in the chair?
Mundakini, wait.
Can we ask questions?
Can you please express to us now in Prabhupada's absence what keeps you enthused to go on with his service?
Yes, dear Ishaka. Actually, in Prabhupada's absence, it's meeting in separation. And what keeps me really going on is actually still feeling Prabhupada's presence in separation, and especially in association with the devotees. Of course, first my dear god sisters and god brothers, and also all the newcomers. And I'm so impressed to see how they have taken Srila Prabhupada's spirit and how they dedicate themselves to Srila Prabhupada's mission and Lord Chaitanya. And also to see how the movement is actually growing. I mean, it's growing sometimes with pains, of course. We have many casualties on the way. And sometimes we do things wrong, but it's growing somehow or other. And we find so many qualified devotees, and they keep me very enlivened. And also, I have full faith that if I carry on, although it might be some difficulties, that the link with Srila Prabhupada will never be broken, and that will be a future with him, in service. It's just a small. And Prabhuji, could I ask the same question to Vishaka?
Yes, I was going to just ask.
No, she's asking.
Well, certainly I think in Prabhupada's absence, in some sense, it's difficult, because when Prabhupada was here, he was always available to nudge us back if we veered from the path that he had chalked out. So we always had that recourse and that solace. And now in his absence, sometimes there are differences of opinions that won't be reconciled because we don't have that decisive, clear direction. But despite that, individually, I think his presence is there by following what he said. And we can so much relish his presence through hearing from his followers, personal accounts. And with that in mind, with the personal accounts in mind, reading his Bhaktivedanta purports make them come so alive and so relevant. And then that with the chanting and the prasadam, that we can get really caught up in his teachings and carry them on with vigor in our life.
I can always remember the day that I came after Prabhupada left. I came to Vrindavan from Bombay because we were not informed in time. But I remember that night staying across the hall from where Vishaka was. She was sitting in her room in front of her trunk, reading just one little light, reading the books. I always remember Vishaka as always studying Prabhupada's books, and that seemed to be she was completely immersed in her association with Srila Prabhupada in those books. I would like to make a comment on the same question for myself, that I also somehow relish the association of devotees and how differently and uniquely they all serve Srila Prabhupada. For me, it's very much the proof of the effect of the process that Prabhupada gave us. But in addition to that, in the very, very beginning, when I first came from India, and I first had to live in the ashram, because I became initiated before even living in a temple, or even following anything. Anyway, so I first came to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and I was thinking, I wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada saying that I'm living with people that ordinarily I would never, ever associate with for even more than 5 minutes. So in order to avoid making offenses, maybe I should move out of the ashram and just come every day. So Prabhupada answered my letter very immediately and said, please do not move away from the temple, because if you do, you will not be able to follow the regulative principles. Now, even though I wasn't a devotee a very long time and I didn't study the books, for somehow or other, I understood that somewhere between the lines, he wasn't just talking about the 4 regulative principles, he was also talking about the regulative times that we're doing all of our sadhana, and other things which I came to learn were the 64 angas. So somehow, every time that I realize that there's some difficulty I may be having, and even if the thought crosses my mind, I always remember this letter from Srila Prabhupada, so I simply can't go away from the association of the devotees in the temple. There are so many devotees that have different reasons why they would stay. There's Anada, and then there's also Nirguna. Nirguna, why do you stay?
Well, yes, the memory of Srila Prabhupada and what he meant to me. And yes, the same as Mundakini is saying, to see so many devotees who never met Srila Prabhupada but are so dedicated. I actually, in Vrindavan, I always say some of the nicest people, the most dedicated people are here, like Govinda Dasi and others. And they are the inspiration. The continuity is there. Prabhupada's message is continuing. It's eternal, it's everlasting, you can see it. And so yes, so that inspires and keeps me, to some degree, of faith and Shraddha. Thank you.
We want more.
No, I don't have more excitement.
How about Renata?
How about Narayani?
Wait. Narayani. So what should I say?
Oh,
Turn the camera.
Sit, you want to sit in the chair so she can get you
Oh,
more
okay.
easily?
You can stay in your chair. Am I supposed to answer that question, or am I supposed
That's
to
your question.
speak about Prabhupada?
Yeah. And then you can, if you want, you can go into the...
Go into, how much time, do I have 5 minutes? Is it 6 till?
Oh, you have at least a half an hour.
Okay. Well, what was the question?
Question was, what keeps you?
What keeps me going? Well, Prabhupada is very present in my life, and practically every minute I feel him pushing me to do things I don't want to do, but I do it anyway because he's pushing me. So, and I understood very early on in spiritual life, if you say yes, then it's much better than if you say no, because if you say no, they'll force you. And if you say yes, then it'll be a lot easier. They'll help you do what they want you to do. And so it's not good to go against the orders or what Prabhupada wants you to do. And for me, it's very clear what he wants me to do, and he did say it when he saw me in Mayapur and in Vrindavan. But to answer the question, yes, I feel very strongly his presence. Whenever I'm confused, when I pray for Prabhupada to direct me. And so I guess the most interesting one was in 1994. Prabhupada, of course, had gone, and I was praying, okay, Prabhupada, I don't know what to do. I just came to Vrindavan, I didn't have any service. What am I supposed to do with my life now? I've been a pujari, I've been doing traveling Sankirtan, I was a mother, now my son went to Gurukul, now what am I supposed to do? And so, until I got the answer, I thought, okay, I'll just read the books because that's what I like to do. And so after about 3 months of reading the books, I got the bright idea that I should share what I read. Because I've been reading the books for 10 years, no, by that time it was 22 years, 24 years of being a devotee. So then I got that bright idea, but I thought, well, I need some confirmation. So, so that other devotees were also encouraging me, and went to the astrologer, he also encouraged me. But then I thought, no, I want from Prabhupada something, some sign. So then one day I was very desperate, and I went into the samadhi, looking for direction. And at that time in 1994, in the samadhi, they were playing lectures of Prabhupada all day long. So when I walked in, Prabhupada was saying, do you think the murti is made of stone? And I looked up at Prabhupada, I said, no, you're here, Prabhupada. Do you think those swamis are so foolish that they're worshipping stone? I said, no, Prabhupada, you're here. And then I thought, but I need some more direction. So then I came here to Prabhupada's house. At that time, they had a Prabhupada murti here sitting, and a letter. And he was writing, there was a letter. So I thought, okay, let me look at the letter, see if it says something. And it did. So what the letter said was, now you are one of my senior disciples. So you have learned the art of Krishna consciousness. Now I want you to teach it purely for others. So I said, okay, here's the sign from Prabhupada. So that was 1994, women don't speak in the temple, VIG was for men. So I said, okay, where am I going to speak? I have to do it. So I was living outside in a life member's house. So I said, okay, I'll just have classes in this house. So for a few months it worked, and then the chowkidars kicked me out. They said, we don't want people coming here. I said, okay. So then I went on the roof of this house, this guest house, and I was giving classes up there. And then after a few months, then I got to stay in where I'm staying now. It's Shesha Prabhu's house. And so then I had classes there for 2 years, and after 2 years, then the VIG started classes for women, and so then I started teaching. So, but for 3 years I was just doing it because I knew it was Prabhupada's desire. And when in the early days, there was no excuse. If Prabhupada gave an order or he wanted something, you just do it. And you don't wait for the facility, you just make the facility. So that's what I learned, that he's still here, and if you do what he wants you to do, then facility will come. So that's what I learned after Prabhupada's disappearance, that there's no hindrance, there's no obstacle, you can still do the impossible, as Prabhupada taught us when he was here, that impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary. So that's how we were trained, that we don't think anything is impossible, because we're not doing it. We're not the doer. We're instruments, and Prabhupada's the doer. So we can do anything. Anything for Krishna, anything for Prabhupada. So now I'll start with when I was with Prabhupada.
Just for the sake of the tape, can you just speak your name?
This is Narayani Dasi. I joined in 1970 in Boston. And the day I joined, we were up all night painting the temple. But Prabhupada was supposed to come. But he didn't come, actually. Instead, he sent 4 sannyasis. He phoned out the day he was supposed to come, and I decided to stay in the temple for the weekend. And one of those sannyasis was Vishnu Jan Maharaj. So we went on Harinam all day and all night for the weekend, and after the weekend I thought, well, you know, I'm feeling so happy, why should I go back home? So then I went home and said goodbye to my husband, and I joined the temple. But he joined 2 months later, because his philosophy was, I won't work. He was a hippie. And I was working a little bit, so he had money, but after I left, he couldn't follow his philosophy unless he became a devotee, because devotees don't work. He joined too. But one thing I learned from that experience, I wasn't ready. I mean, that time to be a devotee means you have to live in the temple. There was nobody outside. So I wasn't ready to join. And Prabhupada gave me that push. He said he was coming, just because he said he was coming. Not only me, 4 or 5 other devotees also joined that same weekend. Just staying the weekend, all of us joined. I think one might be another majority, I'm not sure. That's because we joined kind of together. So then usually after 6 months you get initiated in those days. So I waited 6 months, then our temple president said, well, your husband has 2 months left, so better you wait for him. I said, okay, 8 months. Then I said to my husband, okay, let's get initiated. So he said, I'm not ready. I said, okay, anyway, I'm not waiting any longer. And I wrote a letter to Prabhupada, and he wrote a letter back, and he gave me 6 instructions. And I'm trying to follow all of them, and 5 I've been doing, and 1 is left. So the first 5 were to chant at least 16 rounds. Actually, on my letter it was written 26, and then there was a mistake, and they crossed it out. I said, oh, 26. At least. Then follow strictly all the regular principles, do deity worship, go and preach and do Sankirtan, and read and study all my books. Those are the 5. And the 6th one is 24 hours be engaged. That's yet to come.
24
hours be engaged in Krishna's service. And the path back to Godhead will be open in this life. So I'm trying to do that. Then in 1972, Prabhupada asked for 50 devotees to come to India. And from every temple they chose 2 or 3 devotees, so we were chosen. It's not like you said, I want to go to India. No, you're going. They just said, you're going to India. I said, oh, okay. And so then they sent us out to hitchhike. But not all the way, just in New York. In New York they had mercy on us and they let us collect. We were selling this pamphlet on chanting Hare Krishna for 25 cents. So after 3 weeks, we got our ticket. It was $300 each one way, because Prabhupada told us to go, he didn't tell us to go back. So we just got a one-way ticket to India in 1972. And we arrived in Bombay in 1972. And been here ever since. And now I do go out to preach, but this is my base, India. So the first, when Prabhupada was here, I was in Calcutta. And so that's where I have most association with him. Also in Vrindavan and Mayapur. I was here in Vrindavan in 1972 for the Nectar of Devotion series of lectures. And we were sitting at the Radha Damodar temple in the dust. There was it wasn't paved. And it looked kind of like a bomb shelter. It was kind of bombed out because it was just all like rubble, cement everywhere. Like it looked like somebody had bombed it. Even the front, it was like all deteriorating. But at least it was the original dust, and we were happy about that. Sitting in the dust, you know, the 6 Goswamis were sitting there 500 years ago, and so we were happy. And morning he would give Bhagavatam class, evening Nectar of Devotion, then he would have darshan in his room. And one night he picked me out and said, my sister says you speak Bhagavatam very nicely. So I was completely bewildered because I never spoke Bhagavatam with the speak of nicely. And I was trying to remember. Then I remembered on Janmashtami, the tradition was from morning till night we'd have to read Krishna book in every temple. So there were only a few of us in Calcutta, like 10. So each of us had to read 2-3 hours. And so when it was my turn, it was, I think Ras Leela I was reading. Prabhupada's sister was sitting right in front of me. I think she was the only audience that day. And I was reading in English, and she only knew Bengali. But she, you know, when I came to the part, Krishna had left the gopi, she started crying and crying, and she told Prabhupada she speaks Bhagavatam very nicely. That was my. But actually, then after that, 30 years later, I started speaking Bhagavatam. So I thought, well, whatever a pure devotee says, however it comes out of his mouth, it must happen. So he said those words, and then I started speaking Bhagavatam. 2 things like that happened in my life. One was the Bhagavatam, and one was writing books. And that was in Mayapur in 1973. I was in Calcutta 72. Prabhupada came to Calcutta in 73. And along with Prabhupada came Pradyumna, who was the Sanskrit editor. Now, he knew me from Boston because in Boston, I was typing Bhagavad Gita. And Pradyumna, in those days, yeah, we had to do the composing. Prabhupada wanted typesetting going on 24 hours a day. And so the first day I came into the temple and I stayed, they said, okay, you have to type Bhagavad Gita as it is. And Macmillan is publishing, but we were doing the typesetting. And then Pradyumna gave me the Ishopanishad, and he said, now you have to transliterate from Sanskrit to English. Here's the Sanskrit, you read that and you put it into English. I said, okay. So I learned Sanskrit the first day how to read. And then the same thing happened in Calcutta. Now we're in Bengal. Prabhupada's doing Chaitanya Charitamrita. How would you like to come with Prabhupada to Mayapur and type Chaitanya Charitamrita? I said, yes, I would. He said, okay, you just have to learn to read Bengali. Here's a Bengali book. and I said, no problem. Impossible is a word. I learned, you know, I had to do my Pujari service in my spare time. I learned the Bengali, and off I was the next day with Prabhupada. So, and then in Mayapur, we were living in the Lotus building, which was under construction, which meant that there was bathrooms, but there were no pipes yet in the bathrooms, so you couldn't use them. You had to go out in the middle of the field somewhere. And then, but our rooms also, there were no windows, and it was just a hole in the wall. So, and where the ladies' ashram was, we had no door, so we had to go through the next room, which had no floor. We were on the first floor. So we had to walk across this plank to get to the door. Anyway, it was under construction, so you can imagine. So one day, I was in another room typing, and Prabhupada looked in the window. And I had these earphones on, and I was listening to Prabhupada. And I had this huge Chaitanya Charitamrita open next to me in Bengali, complete Bengali. And so I would hear Prabhupada speak Bengali, and I would read the Bengali, and I would type in English. And he looked at me, he said, oh, you know Bengali? I said, yes, Shri Prabhupada. Come to my room. I said, uh-oh. So he said, okay, you know Bengali? Yes, Shri Prabhupada. So now I want you to learn how to type in Bengali. I said, okay. Sure. And we will do many books together. So that was the second thing he said to me. And I had visions, oh, I'm going to travel with Prabhupada. Well, it didn't happen. Because in Calcutta, they got a new temple president, and all the pujaris left, and they called me to be the head pujari in Calcutta. And because Gargawini was the new president, everyone was scared of him, so they all left. So I became a pujari. But anyway, yeah, so it happened though, that now I'm writing many books. I've got 11 books already, and every year 2, 3 more books. And it's because Prabhupada said that. We will do many books together in Mayapur. So, but anyway, what happened? I learned to type in Bengali, and this brahmachari, Satchidananda, was teaching me. And I said to him, look, you don't have to look at the keys. You can do touch typing. So you just look there and you remember where the keys are. He says, oh, now I understand what Prabhupada said. Prabhupada told me, you teach her and you learn from her also. So I taught him how to touch type in Bengali. And then, but mostly I saw Prabhupada in Calcutta, because I was the pujari there, and we had different things. One time Pushkar, the artist, was there, and he told, Pushkar came to me, and he said, Prabhupada said, get a picture of Radha Govinda, and he told, Prabhupada said, paint Govinda like that, very young. Because I saw Krishna like about 11 years old, Kaishore, like 11, 12. And so he was looking very young, and he said, I have to paint Krishna's face like that. I said, okay. So another thing that happened, I was doing Mangalarti one day, and Prabhupada came, and in that time the deities were here and the temple was here, and there was just like a chain separating the deities from the temple. So it was like about 6 inches away from me, Prabhupada was standing right behind me. Now I didn't know until I had the ghee lamp. I turned around and there was Prabhupada. And I thought, am I supposed to give it to him, or am I supposed to do puja? Well, so I think I did real fast puja and then like that. And then he, and then whole arti, he was standing right behind me, and that was the most concentrated arti I ever did. And I thought afterwards, well, I should do all my service like that. Prabhupada's standing right behind me watching me. I should always do everything like that. And sometimes I remember that and I think, yeah, he's watching. He's watching what I do. Another time in Calcutta, behind the deities there was an open window, Radha Govinda, it's Radha Govinda. And every day these 2 bumblebees would come in. And they would come to Radha Govinda and they would circumambulate and then they would land in the lotus flowers. We had every day 144 lotus flowers, 144 roses, 50 garlands. We had amazing flowers. I would change the flowers 5 times a day in Calcutta. Mangalarti, Shringararti, 4 o'clock arti, Sandhya arti, and evening I would offer different flowers. And we had tons of flowers, so that was our opulence. So these bees will come, the bumblebees on Radha Govinda's side, and small bees will come on Jagannath's side and sit on the garlands, just sit. And I was reading 3rd canto and it was describing Vaikuntha, where the bees sit on the garlands. I said, yeah, it's happening. It's happening here. The bumblebees would go like to Radharani's feet. They were more kind of specific. They wouldn't just hang on the flowers, they would go everywhere. And then Prabhupada made a comment. He said that when the bees are coming to the deities, it means Krishna is pleased with the deity worship. And so every day we had the bees coming. That was good. And sometimes he would chastise us really heavily, and sometimes he would praise us also. Especially in his lectures, he would a lot of times would mention the deities. Nowhere in Calcutta will you find such deities. Or he would say, this deity worship is being done under the direction of Srimati Radharani. Or he would say different things like that just to encourage us. And one time, Calcutta was very austere. So he told us, you don't have to follow Chaturmasa, you're already doing enough austerities here. So we didn't follow Chaturmasa, that year anyway. So what would he chastise us for? Mainly for uncleanliness. That was the main thing. So we had these big, huge ghee lamps, like 4 feet tall, because the lights were going out all the time in those days, and there was no generator. So we had to light the ghee lamps, light the candles all the time. And so one time he looked at those ghee lamps, he said, "Why are these ghee lamps dirty? Who has done this?" And I thought he should have said, "Who has not done this?" But anyway, you want to disappear, but we couldn't. You have to just take it. But then other times, he would praise us. At one time, it was Mayapur festival time, and I remember he went to Shingar Arti, and someone had given me so many flowers, and I had just really done decoration everywhere in the altar. And Prabhupada really was pleased. So he called my husband and I up to the Vyasasan, and there were like 10 sannyasis around the Vyasasan, because they were either on their way to Mayapur or back from Mayapur. And so we offered obeisances, and Prabhupada said, "Thank you very much." And then after we left, one of the sannyasis told us, "Did you hear what Prabhupada said?" I said, "No." And he said, "Prabhupada said, be blessed."
Be what?
Blessed. Blessed. He gave us his blessings. And then I thought, oh yeah, okay, well we got it today, but tomorrow we have to earn it again. It's not like, okay, you got the blessing, now you can retire. And your life, of course your life is perfect if you get the blessings, but it doesn't mean you can ride on those blessings for the rest of your life. Although sometimes I feel that, I would like to. But no, you have to keep earning them again and again. But one thing about Prabhupada was that he was so amazing. Whatever he would do, his movements, and we would just I would stare at him, and I would not only stare at him, I would try to figure him out, because I have this crazy intelligence, like, okay, is he here? Is he somewhere else? You would wonder, like, is this a movie? What dimension is he in, actually? Because he couldn't really, and I always try to figure out, and I could never figure out. Go on a morning walk also, and he would, like I was 20-something, he was 70-something, and he was walking so fast, and we were so tired, and I was trying to figure it out, but I couldn't. So then I realized you can't figure out like that. You have to serve, you have to do devotional service, and then he will give you the understanding. But with your intelligence, you can't figure out anything. You can't figure out spiritual life, you can't figure out the spiritual master. Because that was me, I was always trying to figure out with my intelligence, but it didn't work with Prabhupada. You had to serve and see him with devotion. So what else? One time, in Calcutta, he was giving Bhagavad Gita class, Avajananti Mahmudha, that the fools and rascals, they deride Krishna when he comes. So everyone was singing the verse. The men had the books, the women didn't have books. Came my turn, and I just said it by memory, and Prabhupada looked at me with eyes big. So I understood he likes that. He likes us to memorize verses. So I was memorizing verses all the time there. So that's a good thing to do if you want to please Prabhupada, is learn the verses. He liked if we read the books, not just sold the books. Right. So I'm trying to think of anything. Yeah, he would always reciprocate with us very much. One time I went to Bombay.